10 o'clock-ish. 10:01, we might as well get her going. You know, things are busy and you guys have lots to do. So, thank you all for coming. I know things are busy and time is valuable, totally understand. So
I got all the time in the world.
perfect,
Yeah.
perfect. Nail off a bunch of questions, let me know. So for the people that are joining online, I think there's a few more coming online as well. I believe Jessica said we can just unmute you. You can ask any questions, or if you guys have any questions as I go through it. There were a bunch of questions sent by agents over the last week. I'm just kind of going to answer throughout the presentation and just kind of, I almost call it like a financing 360, like just everything kind of under the sun. And if you guys have any questions at all about just content I'm going through, I'd love this to be even a more open dialogue, right? So little background on myself, Mike Fleming, mortgage specialist, Bank of Montreal. I've been in the business just over 10 years now. So I've been BMO 8 and was previously with RBC for a couple of years, but back to always stay blue, back to this side of the blue. But yeah, I mean, in 10 years, I think I've seen everything under the sun other than rates being this high, but we'll get into that. When I started, they were in around kind of 4% and all the way down to about 1.5 on a 5-year fix a couple of years ago, and now up to low 6s now, which is what you guys are seeing in the market. But yeah, truly, so let's make this an interactive session. I brought my area manager, VP of the mortgage specialist team, Danny Worthington. He's been with our team now for a little over a month. I've been working with Danny for about 2.5, almost 3 years, as he was a branch manager at the branch that I work closely with. So welcome, Danny, to Keller Williams and the team here and everyone online. But Danny's a great resource for me, and probably sees my name come up on the phone and starts to cringe and say, what the hell does he want again? but I know he's been great so far, and his feet have been pretty wet over the past month trying to figure it all out, but appreciate your help.
No problem. I just want to say thank you for allowing me to attend. Just something about Mike, and I know he's an humble person. I come from high performance sport. I had 20 years in a different career for internationally. And for the last 3 years, I've been with BMO, and the first 2 was about getting like-minded people collaborating, exactly like your mission that's on the side. And Mike was the first person that was like-minded and wanted to grow his business. And to be honest with you, we transformed Russell Lake branch, the military branch over in Dartmouth. And I get the pleasure to work with him today. And really, it's just about support. He's giving me the guidance at the minute, which is kind of cool. But yeah, just want to let you know that this person standing in front of you is probably in the top 7 1,000 MSs. And I get the privilege of working with him every day, so he can be here for you. So yeah, Mike,
All right, thanks, Danny. So biggest thing for me, I always start with this: how can I support you guys, right? So I do have an amazing team, as Danny mentioned. I have a great team at the branch. I work out of Clayton Park and also Russell Lake. If your clients want to sign at any branch, could be Bedford, could be Sackville, I can do that. But I primarily work out of the Halifax branch, which is the largest branch in Halifax, at the one by Home Depot, in Bears Lake, and then Russell Lake as well. So I have a team, myself and mortgage specialist associate, that kind of does all the back end work with me. So it's a team of 2 and pretty efficient team. We're quick turnaround on your approvals, 1 to 2 days. One thing I will work with you guys on is definitely open communication with approval and instructions timing, right? You're not going to be texting me, emailing me saying, Mike, where's this deal stand? Where are we at? I'm going to be all over you guys, just kind of give you a heads up. Here's where it's at. Unfortunately, if it's a deal that I can't get through, we're having some issues. I'll let you know why. It could be appraisal taking a little longer than we want. Could be some credit issues with the client, things like that. But I'll keep you kind of apprised of what's going on. Similar to you guys, I mean, I'm 100% commission in my job. It's not a salaried job at the bank, and which makes my job, it's not a 9-to-5 position. It's the same as you guys, right? It's literally, I wake up at 6 a.m. and I have a bunch of emails from clients that got in late at work last night from 9 to 2 in the morning. Right, so I'm up first thing at 6 and then getting back all the emails, and then the regular 9 to 5, and then everything else kind of starts again from 5 to 10. So it's all over the map. So please reach out to me if you guys need anything at all throughout any hour, really. We get the tough ones done. I will say that, I mean, dealing, and I know a lot of brokers, worked at RBC, BMO. We have some amazing policies, which I'll go through here, that kind of, I believe, separate us from the rest. And I'm just stubborn to a fault, to be honest. If I believe there's a deal there, and Danny knows this, and he's starting to see this, that I just won't give up on it. If I truly believe there's a deal there, I'll escalate as high as we can go. and get it done. If there's not a deal there, I'll work with the client and say, here's what we need to do to get you there, right? So if you refer someone now, it might not be a sale right now, but it might be 6 months down the road or a year down the road. I'll get them set up. It's usually a credit issue. And then I'll get the kind of credit situated and work with them on it through the bank. And then maybe a year from now, that'll turn into a pipeline deal for you guys. Right. And 24/7, as I mentioned earlier, it truly is. That's just what we've signed up for in this world, right? The rate environment, this is always the burning question. You mean the Bank of Canada monetary policy, all that's happening with not all that's happening, but with the rate increases, we're just trying to curb inflation, right? I was looking at the numbers this morning. 2022 was up around 9.8%. Normally it hovers around 2 to 2.25 on inflation. You look at everything now, from groceries, gas, everything's gone absolutely skyrocketing. So even values of homes. So they're increasing the rates to try to curb that back down to the normalized rate of 2 to 2.5%. And right now we're kind of 4 to 4.2% roughly for inflation. So it is working. But you mean we had a big spike in July. I believe that's when the carbon tax kind of hit the gas and shot us up here another like 17 or 18 cents, and that kind of skewed our inflation numbers a little bit. Like if you look a couple of years ago, our 5-year post was 4.79. Now we're 6.89, right? And the big impact that we're having here is the affordability of clients. That's the challenge we're having, right? So, for example, a client that was able to be approved for 500,000 2 years ago, and let's assume nothing's changed, liabilities, income, everything. Let's say they're about 400,000 now, right? So if you're $100,000 difference, I mean that's going to change how many bedrooms, maybe bathrooms, your neighborhood. That's a huge change, right? Variable rates now, you mean a lot of clients have not looked at the variable side of things because there's always the fixed and variable, which I'll get into. And that was one of the questions that you guys asked. But right now, variable's at 7.2%. 2 years ago, it was at 2.45%. That was prime. So the good news is they just held the prime rate on their last Bank of Canada meeting. So hopefully that means we've hit the top, and we hopefully might see things start to slowly come down now. Praying, hoping, wishing, everything. So I just want to give you guys an example, payment example based on rates. And if you guys are any of the ones that sent any of the questions through earlier, there's about 20 of them. I just kind of am answering majority of these questions through this presentation. Then I'll show the questions at the end of the presentation, how we addressed it. But 2 years ago, if you had a 2% interest rate, 500,000, your payment's $2,117, right? So your payments right here, all your payments right there. So if your interest rate now currently is what, 6.25%, right? The amount's going to stay the same. I just use 500,000 as the example over 25 years, which is 300 months. Now your payment's $3,273. So in 2 years, right, your payment's gone up $1,100, right? That's quite a jump. And I'd love to say salaries have made that same percentage increase, but no, they haven't. And unfortunately, where salaries have not gone up, people are taking on more debt, whether it's on credit card debt or unsecured line of credit debt to pay whether it's mortgage or rent or other bills, whatever it might be. 2 years from now, I just put a number in there of 4%. I truly think the days are gone of the 1.5%, 2%, 2.5% on fixed. I think it'd be nice to settle into that 4% piece on the rate side. And if that does, you mean it's kind of roughly right in the middle of where we're at between these two, and kind of fall into what's 2,630, right? So that just shows you, that's just the big column, the left one and the right one, which kind of is staggering to show $1,100, $1,160 increase from 2 years ago. If you were to apply for a home 2 years ago versus now. Any questions so far? If there is, just tell me to ask the questions, I'll answer right away. So this is one of the questions as well. What term to choose? Awesome question. If you asked me this question 2 years ago, or 6 months ago, or today, the answer almost keeps changing rapidly. So we got to stay on top of this. If you were to say 2 years ago, 5-year fixed, wouldn't think twice. 1.8%, absolutely. Or maybe even the 5-year variable, where prime was at 2.45, and we had like 1.2 off prime. So people were getting rates of like 1.2% on the variable side, which at that time made a lot of sense. Clients were like, wow. But we were very spoiled for a long time. And unfortunately, we're in a bit of a new world now. So your 3-year fix now, a lot of clients are looking at the 3-year. Let's say it's approximately 6.4%. The good thing with any of our terms is you can early renew 6 months in advance. So a 3-year fix is like a 2.5-year fix, or a 2-year fix is like a 1.5-year fix. So it's all about trying to time where rates are going to go. Like I said earlier, hopefully we've hit the ceiling. Now we're gonna hopefully start to see them come down slowly. It's not gonna be, I don't think they're gonna come down nearly as quick as they went up. They had like 10 rate increases over about 7 months or something like that. You're not gonna see it come back down to where it was as quick as it did. But I do believe you're gonna start to see it come down. So a 3-year fix is what a lot of clients are looking at, because if you look at a 2-year fix, your rates are about 7%, right? Which is pretty high. So a 3-year fix, hopefully that times well with rates being ideally at the bottom. It's hard to time exactly where the bottom will be and when it will be, but 2.5 years from now could be close. So the 3-year fix is making sense for people. I wanted to highlight the 5-year close variable because we haven't looked at variable at all in the past few months, but now in my mind it's becoming slightly attractive because prime's at 7.2. They did not increase prime again, so hopefully that'll be the last increase. And now we're about 6.75%, right? So 45 points off prime. So to me, that looks kind of attractive because if you're going to get 6.75, it's not that much higher than the 3-year. And with one rate decrease, let's say in the spring or winter next year, I mean, your rate back down to the 6.4, right? So if you're at 6.75 right now, and it usually goes down 1/4 of a point, if it's really aggressive, it's a 1/2 point, but probably not, it's going to be 1/4 of a point, then you're right down to 6.4%. So the good thing is with a variable, you can lock into a fix at any time, and it's a lower penalty to get out of as well. So that's kind of what I chat with your clients about. Not that you guys need to know everything about this. This was a question about it. It's just good to know enough to be dangerous, I always say, and then just send them my way, and I'm happy to talk to them, and I'll kind of lay out. I always tell them honestly what I would do. If it was me, here's what I would do, and here's what I do in your position. But I'll give you the 2 or 3 or 4 options at the time. But that's best. So I did put kind of the payments. It's not that different right now. Like I said, like if you look at a 3-year fix at 6.4, I just use 400,000 this example, 25 years, but it's 26.55 a month. If you look at the 5-year fix at 6%, so 5-year fix is slightly lower than the 3-year fix, but I still would never take that because rates are going to come down in a couple of years, and then you're locked into a 5-year, right? So you're better off to pay that extra 0.4 so you can get out earlier. But your payment would be about $100 less than the 5-year fixed, and a 5-year variable that's $27.40, so it'd be about $90 more in the variable. So I'm kind of in between 3-year fixed or 5-year variable. That's where I would hover. Bank of Canada just help prime lending, as I mentioned, should see rates coming down. Yes, so that's kind of, hopefully that answered the term question that was had. Another question was kind of what is a refinance and when and why should you do it? So what a refinance is essentially, I'll give you the math, I'll do the math part after, but essentially it's just taking equity out of your current home. You look at if someone hasn't changed their mortgage over the past 3 or 4 years, yeah.
Are we able to get the slides? Because I'm taking pictures with really good information, but like, are you able to send us?
So I sent it to Jessica and Aaron, so maybe she can email it to you guys, I'm sure. Yeah, I know she said she was gonna put the recording up on the YouTube channel, but yeah, she can definitely email that out to you.
Sweet,
Yeah.
sounds good.
Yeah.
'Cause I was
I can't speak for her, I assume she will, it's ask her.
Because I want to be taking all these pictures, and then I was like, well, maybe we can just get the whole. Okay.
Yeah, for
Sorry
sure,
to-
for sure.
to, like derail you.
Yeah, no problem. No, I love that. So essentially what a refinance is taking equity of your home to pay for multiple different things, which I'll speak about, but we're seeing that a lot right now, just because people unfortunately are going further into debt with credit card debt, line of credit debt. Cash flow right now is a bit of an issue, right? So like I said, salaries are not going up, but the bills keep, food's going up, your car payment's still there, your student loans are still there, everything's still there, right? And kind of the last thing that people are looking at, which is a good option at this point for them on a cash flow side, is refinancing, just taking that equity out of the house, right? So if you haven't changed your mortgage in the past 2 or 3 years, your house has probably increased in value, maybe double or 50 or 60 or 70%, right? So lots of equity in that house to do that. So we simply take 80% of the value of your home minus your current mortgage. So if you look at a home value as an example, 500,000, right? 80% of that, we can mortgage it for 400,000. Let's say the current mortgage on it is 300,000, right? So you take the 80% of 400 minus the 300, and now you have $100,000 equity, right? So if someone's mortgage payment goes up $1,100, like I told you in that example, maybe they'll refinance it and pay off a car payment that's $800 and a trailer payment that's $500. Right, so they might not be able to fully offset it, but they might be able to kind of not have the huge sticker shock of that renewal going up $1,100 when they can refinance and pay off some other debt, right? Just there are costs to it. They're roughly $300 for an appraisal, $565 for the legal side. We use a company called First Canadian Title. And discharges depends on the lender, 300 to 400. So it's about 1265. I would say 85 to 90% of the time we have a promotion going, which I'll speak about later. That covers up to $1,100 of it. So really, it's not too cost prohibitive to do it. If there is a penalty, we can look at that, and I'll kind of do the analytics for the client and see if it makes sense. We can add the penalty into the mortgage, so it's nothing cash they're going to pay out of pocket. So if they need 80 grand to pay off debt, but the penalty is 3,000, then I'll do 83,000, right? And reasons, everybody has reasons. It's biggest one right now is consolidation of debt, but lowering mortgage payments at renewal. Right. So what we can do with a refinance, if you have 14 years left on your mortgage, right? And everybody's like, oh, I really want to get this paid off in 14 years. You might not have a choice. You might have to refinance and take that back out to 25 years. Maybe you don't pay any additional debt off. You just increase the length of the loan to keep essentially to keep the payments for what they were. Right. So if your payments are $1,500 a month and they're going to go to $2,100 a month based on 14 years, if you go to 25-year amortization, it might keep it back to $1,400. So at least your payments stay the same. You're not going to lose your house. Yes, the dream of paying it off as quick as you wanted might be gone, or maybe rates will go down and you might have some chances to take advantage of prepayment privileges and pay it down faster. But at least you get to keep your place, keep the payments the same, and continue life on. Consolidation of debt, investing. It could be, I do a lot of these, down payment to buy a rental property or a cottage or a second home, maybe renovations, could be education for the kids, whatever it may be. Lots of different reasons that clients refinance. But hopefully that did answer the refinance question. But number one is 1 and 2, consolidation of debt. And the biggest, obviously, pain picture that people are having right now is the renewal and their payment skyrocketing. Yeah, absolutely.
When you do the refinance, so you talked about like doing renovations, I always in my mind, and I just thought of that as like taking that equity and put it into like an LLC or like a line account or whatever, and that you use to do renovations. But you're talking about refinancing, so that equity goes towards not a borrowing account, but just
That's essentially, we're going to put it right in your bank account. Right. So based on that previous example, right, that 100, that if this was you or your client,
right,
that 100 grand, let's say there was a $3,000 penalty, so you're getting 97 of that 100. That's going right into your checking account or savings account for you to manage as you want.
right.
Right. You can simply say, well, I'm not doing my renovations now for 6 more months. I'm going to put it into 6-month GIC and let it hopefully grow at 3 or 4%. You might need the money right away, and then you're just going to pay the contractor. So now you just got to be diligent with that. Right now you're sitting on $97,000 in your checking account, right? So you don't want to go booking a bunch of vacations or things like that if you need that 97 for the renovations, right? But if you have quotes from your builder, sometimes they may want deposit of a third of it up front, 30 grand up front or whatever it might be. You have that money there, and then you can pay them as they need it. They may want it in draws, or they may want, like, they might say it's 60% when it's done, I want this, and when this is done, I want that much. They may say I want 30% up front, and then when it's complete, the rest. So you got to be kind of diligent and hold that, almost nickname a separate account, transfer it out of your personal checking, do a separate account, just call that renovation account, don't touch, or whatever it might be. But yeah, you're going to get that as cash.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like the same formula that you use to like determine somebody's home equity, so that you could maybe pre-approve them for borrowing loan or whatever, like for finance, but that's a different, it's just sort of the same formula with like a different.
Yeah, exactly. Thing. So if you're looking at a personal loan and things like to do that, the branch is going to do that for you.
Right.
But the cheapest way to access money interest rate wise is going to be through a mortgage, through your home. Like a personal loan, you could be 10%, right? Where a mortgage, you're going to be at 6%, right? So it's a lot cheaper to do it that way, as long as you have the equity in your home. Right, if your mortgage is 320, but your value is 400, you have no equity, right? 400 times 80% is the 320,000 minus the 320 mortgage. There's nothing there, right? So as long as that formula works, I mentioned before, 80% of your home value amount minus what's owing. Okay. This is another question. The pre-approval process, the benefits of getting pre-approved. So for me, I mean, it's a lot of first-time home buyers I deal with, buyers to understand the financing process. So I kind of walk, I mean, the greener they are, the more I love it. I mean, to be honest with you, I love explaining the whole process, literally from start to finish. So they understand, and there's no surprises at the end of the day, right? So they know exactly what they're going to be going through. I mean, the offer, as you guys know, it's stronger, I believe, with an approval letter, right? So we essentially are doing all the heavy lifting up front. If there's credit issues, anything we need to mitigate, it's all done in the pre-approval, right? Some pre-approvals, if it's like the unicorn clients, I say, they approve, but we have like a decisioning system that doesn't go to credit, it just boom, approves them. But if not all of them are like that. Majority of them are not, and we have to send a credit to address. Maybe they have a job that they're not past their probationary period yet. Maybe it's a borrowed down payment, they don't have a down payment. Could be some credit issues, a miss, maybe a consumer proposal a few years ago. Things like that will make our system not automatically approve them. Okay, so if we can mitigate all this up front, that might take a few days to do it. Once we get the live offer from you, it's just boom, rubber stamp approval. Then we send it to CMHC if we need to, if it's less than 20% down. But let's get all the hard work done up front. We have the longest rate hold in the market, which especially in this increasing rate environment, I mean, to have that, some lenders are 90 days. The max you see up to 120 days, we're 130. So that's great news. And we also have what we call partial look backs within that 130 days too. So if rates go down, right, that's going to be your worst case scenario. So let's say 6.4 on a 3-year fix right now is what I pre-approve you for. That's your worst case scenario. If it goes down to 5.9 by the time we close, then we're going to reset your rate at the 5.9. But if it goes up to 6.8, you're held at that 6.4. Right? Makes sense?
You get the benefit.
Yeah, you have your cake and eat it too a little bit, right? It's, yeah. Quicker decision, like I mentioned, it was the first thing I said. And you mean, especially in this market where we're maybe not, this is more what you guys can chat about versus me, but I think we're still seeing competing offers, maybe not as much as we were a year ago. Maybe there's still a few of them out there, but clients will say, I want a $400,000 purchase pre-approval. I'm putting 5% down. I will still go to their max. I'll be like, you want to know what? I can get you at 460. And at least they know, and you guys know, right? Because they might find their dream home. They want to spend 400, but their dream home's 422. And that's what you can get it for. At least you know they can go there, right? So any questions about pre-approvals? Good. Okay. Other questions were, we are the bank of the military, what we call CDCB, the Canadian Defense Community Banking Program. So I'll never do a presentation in front of anyone without bringing this program up. And this was a question brought up by one of you guys as well. So essentially what this is, there's a lot of great advantages to this program. The biggest one that I deal with is the everyday banking piece, which I'll speak slightly about, but I don't touch the everyday banking. I'm just on the mortgage side. So the big one is D&D or Brookfield, they no longer pay your mortgage penalty for you, right? So we cover that penalty. Now we used to cap that at $5,000. We don't cap that anymore. It can be $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 penalty. I've had a $10,000 penalty for a client, totally waived, right? As long as we get that posting message that they are relocating. Now I'll bring both options to them. It might make sense to port their mortgage, or it might make sense to pay their penalty. Right now, if they got a mortgage 2 years ago and it was 2%, there's no point in us paying the penalty. We would pay for them, but then you'd have to go into a new 6.4% mortgage. They might as well port that mortgage, that 2% mortgage over to the new home, right? So I'll do both options for their client. Regardless, they will not have a penalty, whatever makes sense. But inversely, on the other kind of flip the coin, if you look at right now, for example, a client's buying a home in Halifax, he's D&D, rates are 6.4%. He's being transferred, he or she's being transferred to Ottawa in 3 years, and rates in 3 years are 3%, right? Now we're going to break that penalty. Why is he going to port a 6.4% mortgage? Just $8,000 penalty, boom, we're going to cover it for them. Now we won't cover other lenders' penalties, just ours, right? So let's try to, if they're first-time home buyers or any client D&D, they should be looking at BMO for multiple reasons. Obviously, that's the big one. Rates were about usually 20 points lower on the rate side as well. Rates obviously a huge important topic right now. So we're about 6.2 on a 3-year right now for now that's not to get too far into it with rates, but rates are lower if you put less than 20% down. So if you're going through CMHC, there is a fee to do that, but which D&D does pay for. But yeah, we're about essentially 6.2 roughly on if you're putting 20% down or more, about 6% if you're putting less than 20% down. But that's a big one, rates and paying the penalty. Also free banking, right? We do offer that, and I won't go too far into that because I don't know all the ins and outs of it. But if you look at banking fees, whether your own personal bank, when I started 10 years ago, it was $8.95. Now it's $9.95, $10.95. I think it's gone to like $17 or $18 now. It's crazy what banking fees are. So it's actually starting to add up. So we cover that for them. free credit cards, there's a Support Your Troops MasterCard, no fee as well. Personal line of credit is always prime plus 1.25, which is a huge advantage. Right now, if you were to walk in, you probably get prime plus 3.5 or 4. So big savings there on a line of credit. So yeah, just an overall package that we offer from the mortgage side and everyday banking. We just kind of wrap our arms around these clients that we offer them kind of every possible thing they need. We have a solution for them. Any questions on military, D&D? One thing I didn't say about that is I always keep saying military out of habit and D&D, but it's a federal government program, right? So it's Navy, it's RCMP, it's Coast Guard and military, and it's also retired military. You had a client that was in the military for a year and then got out, whether it could be for medical leave, whatever, retired, they would still qualify for these programs. So they don't have to be active, and it's not just military. Think RCMP, think it's a federal program. So one of the questions that one of you guys asked is it first responder? So it is not. So a lot of people will ask me, like, can HRP, Halifax Regional Police, qualify for that? The answer is no. EHS, like the emergency health system, paramedics, things like that, it doesn't. It's strictly a federal program, not provincial and not municipal. Yeah. We do mobiles. We got in the space about 1.5 years ago, maybe 2 years ago. We've always been in the space, but our rates were like 10%. I mean, just if someone had a client for this, I would just refer them off to another lender, because we just didn't really play the game rates wise. Why would I do it at 10% when they can go to someone else and get 3 or 4%, right? It just didn't make sense to me. So, but now I've been pushing hard with Mike Cook, who's our regional vice president, would be Danny reports to him. And he pushed this nationally. So now we have a national program in place that essentially the program's still the same, but our rates are now the same as conventional rates. So we're completely competitive. So no secret, RBC has kind of been the dominant player in this space. And I just want to let you guys know that there is another option. We do mobiles for clients. Majority of mobiles that I'm doing is in a park, right? So it's on leased land. We also do it if the mobile is on its own land as well. Could be permanent foundation or non-permanent, but I would say 85% of the mobiles I do would be in a leased land in a park. Okay. The good thing about this is you can pay it off at any point without penalty. And when we do a pre-approval for this or approval, it's always subject to CMHC approval, right? So I'll back it up a little bit. There are 3 default insurance companies: CMHC, Sagen, used to be Genworth, and Canada Guarantee. If you put less than 20% down, it goes through one of those 3. But CMHC is the only one that will do mobiles in leased land. So we approve them first, then it goes to CMHC for approval. Okay. And what really helps me, if you guys have mobile clients and we're looking for a pre-approval, I always have to use 1% for property taxes, but property taxes are a lot less. Like you might have a $220,000 purchase for a mobile. I need to use $2,200 for taxes, which is 1%. But sometimes taxes are only $800, right? So if you can give me a client, say, okay, we're looking at this park, taxes are only $800 a month or $800 a month, $800 a year, and the leasehold fees are this. I usually put around $375. Some are $275, some are up to like $4.25 now. So if you can give me more accurate taxes and leasehold, then I can get a more accurate pre-approval for you. Because if I do it my way with 1% and leasehold fees of $375, I might be able to say, okay, we're good for $220. But if you tell me that taxes are this and leasehold fees are a little bit less, I'm like, okay, well, the same thing now, clients are $240, right? So it makes a big difference in what I can approve them for, which that additional 20 grand might get you guys a deal compared to how other lenders do it. Mobiles continued. So we're the only lender in market that will refinance a mobile in a park, which is amazing. So mobile, same as detached homes, semi-detached, whatever, have really increased in value, as you guys know as well. So we can do a refinance. So if you recall the couple slides ago, it was 80% of the home value minus the mortgage. With a mobile home loan, it's 75%, right? So it's the same formula. It's just the appraisal value that we get, multiply that by 0.75, 75% minus the mortgage amount. And that's what we can lend them. Right. So whether the mobile is in a park, which is a huge advantage. So you can have clients that refine a park to pay off any of the same things I mentioned. Could be renovations, could be education for kids, could be debt, whatever it might be. So we can definitely do that. Maximum amortization on this is 15 years. So with this one, like I said before, in the other ones on a detached home, you can take it out to 25 years. With this, you can only take it out to 15. So we'll have to see if those numbers make sense. But if they're okay with the payment on the 15 years, they might get an extra 60, 70, 80 grand. It might be to buy a new home, maybe to buy a rental property for you guys, pay off debt to ease the financial burden of clients, whatever it might be. Hopefully it turns into a rental purchase for them. And competitive rates on that as well, so. One thing we do that a lot of lenders don't as well is land financing. So I probably do about 15 to 20 land deals per year. Majority of the time people are buying land to build on it eventually. We do construction builds as well. But with that, it's 35% down and appraisal is required. Some lenders that do land want to kind of a build, they want to see what you're going to do for a build the next year or so, like what your plans are. For us, you can buy it and hold it as long as you want, right? Land value is not going to be going down, ideally. And this is an actual mortgage that pays down the principal. So it's not a secured line of credit that goes on the land. There's a principal and interest component to it. But we do just kind of keep in mind that we do land, we finance land. And if your clients need help with the construction mortgage, then we do construction mortgages as well. So someone asked me the step-by-step process, and I kind of took this from a financing side. So the way it would work for me starts off with a pre-approval. Let's get that pre-approval done. Once you have an accepted offer, send the offer to me. Then I order the appraisal. If it's 20% down or more that the client's putting down, we need to order an appraisal, right? So I'll order that appraisal, then I'll send it to credit for review. Then they'll put the quick stamp approval on it, especially if it's already been pre-approved by the same credit officer. They're gonna look at it and say, oh yeah, I just did this deal. I approved it 3 weeks ago. I remember this. Boom, yeah, rubber stamp approval. I send the financing letter to you guys. I try to get it to you within 4 or 5 days, depending. If it's a CMHC deal, so no appraisals required, I can get you an approval. If I have an actual pre-approval done, I can get it to you in probably a day, 2 days. If an appraisal is required, I'll get an approval within 2 days, but it'll be subject to appraisal, because I'm not going to get the appraisal back in 2 days. They're kind of 3 or 4 day turnaround. I'll send you guys a financing letter. I'll get mortgage instructions sent out to your lawyer, and then funds are sent to solicitor about 1 to 2 days before closing. So that's kind of the perfect kind of start to finish of how the whole deal would go through in order. So if you guys haven't seen that in any deals you're working with, then obviously there is an issue. For me, this is where the communication piece comes in, right? Because we don't have the pre-approval. A lot of times, here's where the issue is going to come right here. Credit review, right? Yeah.
Only a stupid question.
New.
Why do you have to order appraisal if it's 20% more down?
Because if there's 20% or more, there's no CMHC involved now. So you do alleviate the cost of CMHC, the default insurance company. So for that, now the bank says, okay, if the clients go bankrupt, we're stuck with this house. So what's the value of this house, right? You might have a purchase and sale of 540, but if it only appraises at 450, the bank's kind of underwater right away, right? So if CMHC, the odd time CMHC will order an appraisal, not too often. If they do, then I'll let you guys know that CMHC's decided to order an appraisal. Now, when I say CMHC, I just say that the default, like I said, there's 3 default insurance companies. But yeah, that's essentially what we fall back on, right? Because we need to know what that house is valued at. So we're going to fund it off the lower of the appraisal or the purchase and sale. So let's say the purchase and sale that you give me is 500,000, right? Clients want to put 20% down, then we would fund 400,000 of that 500,000. But let's say the purchase and sale, or let's say for easy math, let's say the appraisal comes in at 450, so 50,000 less. We're going to finance 80% of the 450, which is 360,000. Right, so now that client's going to be able to make up that additional 40,000, that shortfall between 400 and 360. Yeah, so if the client's willing to do that, or maybe that I've had situations where we got the appraisal done, and that's given the realtor some negotiating power to say, you want to what? Can we look at maybe this price point? Right. If you guys give me facts and say, you want to what, Mike? I think this appraiser is totally out to lunch, because we don't pick who the appraiser is. Right, it goes through a third-party company called NAS. All the lenders use them. And once they kind of distribute out the appraiser, I don't know who it is until we get the appraiser back. Some are better than others, honestly, same as any business. Some usually support the value, some are a little more nitpicky and little frustrating to work with, but I don't have a choice who they go to. But if you give me the ammunition, I can say, okay, Mr. Appraiser, Mrs. Appraiser, here's why we believe that this appraisal is not 450. We believe it's 475. You forgot these two comparables, right? Because they're really going just based by the comps, right? And I'll show you the comps that they give, right? So if it's 123 Smith Street, and you're like, no, that shouldn't even be on there because of this, this, and this. We should put this. We should look at this one that's sold. So it's got to be a property that's sold within the last 6 months, and it can't be a property that's listed. It has to be sold, right? So we can't say, well, this one's listed right beside it for the exact same amount. Got to be sold, right? So if you can give me some ammo, I'm happy to go back to the appraiser and push and fight and say, can we get this from 450 to 475? And here's really the 1, 2, 3 bullet points as to why we should do that. Yeah, happy to fight. It's fun.
Do they always send somebody out, or sometimes they just do it like online, like they just use it?
95% of the time they're sending someone out. It changed a lot in the COVID world. Now, something wrong's come back to that a little bit more here, but in the COVID world last year, a couple of years ago, they would just go take pictures of the outside of the house, and then they have the client send the pictures of the inside of the house, and they try to do their best to get it done that way.
Right.
Yeah, which made it hard. And I mean, they just kind of generally for the most part supported the value, because that's what I was really worried about when COVID prices went and has went like that. There wasn't a lot of comparables to use, right? So when it first started, so they did actually support the values, which was good. I thought that would be more of a challenge than it was, but yeah, that whole appraisal beast is one I don't love dealing with. Sometimes it's super slick, and sometimes it comes in and they might even put like it's $5,000 less than what the appraisal value or the purchase. I'm like, come on. Like I get the person sale for 620, they get to me at 615. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, just bump it up to the $5,000. Like, bump it up $5,000 to 620 away. Like, why are you doing that? Another question was, what is bridge financing? So we're seeing a lot of bridge financing lately, probably more than I ever have. All bridge financing it's a short-term loan. The rate is a little gross from what you see at 10.75%. But I always tell clients not to focus on the rate. What I do is I say, okay, if you're doing a 7-day bridge, and I'll explain what a bridge is in a minute, here's your per day cost, right? Don't look at that 10.75 because you're going to want to be, it's not, so don't think about that. Think about it's $28 a day or $34 a day. Is it worth it for you to bridge for a week for $210, right? And all a bridge is essentially the down payment. We're covering the down payment because we have a firm sale on the client's original home. Now you want to buy your home and take ownership of your home before your other home sells, right? So if you're selling your current home on October 1st, but you want to move in September 23rd, you'll need a 7-day bridge, right? So if the down payment's 80 grand, then we're going to do an $80,000 bridge. Then you might need closing costs as well, right? Your deed transfer tax, your legal fees, property tax adjustment, oil adjustment, all that fun stuff. I say that's usually 2.25%. So let's say the client needs, for example, let's say the client needs 90 grand, right? So I always break it down this way for the client. So forget it with the 10.75%. I'll say it's $90,000 multiplied by 10.75%. So annually it's $9,675, but then I divide that by 365. Now it's $26 a day, right? So now like, okay, that's more manageable. So for people to have everything moved in their house and for that kind of peace of mind and comfort of being in the new house a week before, 26 times 7, $185. So don't focus on the 10.75, focus on the payment. That's what I tell clients to do. So they're like, oh my God, perfect. I thought it was gonna be like thousands, right? But it's not. So for this, for a bridge for us to approve, the client needs to have a firm sale of the existing home. So it can't just be a purchase and sale that you sent me, it has to be firmed up. So I believe that's when you guys have the 408, right? And everything's firmed up at this point. So we need the 408. And one thing credit's always going to look at is what we need. Oh, there shouldn't be you there on the last point. PUITH should be PITH. But what that means is the credit's going to look at it because they're always very conservative. What's the worst case thing that can happen? They're going to back the buyer's going to back out of the sale of that home that you currently own and has to go back on the market. So we need to show the client has 3 months principal, interest, taxes, and heat. So that might be equivalent to $5,000 or $6,000, whatever it might be. Access, credit card, on a line of credit, savings, RSPs, tax-free savings account, whatever. Because we need to show for that 3 months, what goes back on the market, that they can now pay for both homes, right? So that's how we kind of mitigate around the bridge. So I hope that answers the bridge question, but we're seeing a lot of those, and essentially it's just buying or moving into the home before your other home sells. That's all the bridge is, a short-term loan.
I would think it would be super common because like we constantly tell our clients to not try to close 2 homes on one date. It's
Yeah.
impossible.
Yeah, I'm saying
It's
it's
not
not,
impossible.
Yeah.
But it's really, really difficult to close your new house and your old house on the same day.
Yeah.
So like I would think that you, like, I always recommend it to my
Yeah,
clients.
yeah, for sure.
Say-
So as long as they qualify, it's not,
Yeah.
it's, yeah, so as long as we have that firm sale,
Yeah.
I mean, that everything's firmed up. And they have access to a little bit of cash on, could be revolving facilities, line of credit, things like that. First time home buyer incentives is another question, so. This one, I haven't done many of these, I don't know how much I love this program, to be honest. CMHC shared equity program, essentially, if you're buying a resale home, you put in 5%, CMHC is gonna put in 5%, now they own 5% of your home. Essentially, so when you sell it, they're gonna realize those gains as well. And a lot of people had some pretty big gains over the past couple of years if they sold. So CMHC was part of that. It does reduce your payments slightly because now you're putting 10% down versus 5% down, but CMHC is putting 5% of that. So it's a shared equity program. You're sharing the down payment essentially with CMHC. If you have, I probably done, if I do 250 mortgages a year, I'd say 1, maybe 2 of them might be this program. So I don't think clients are really taking to this one too much, but I just want to at least put it all out there so you know what first time home buyer incentives are out there, okay? They did increase last year, the RSP down payment that can be taken out from 25,000 to 35,000. Obviously with home values increasing, therefore the 5% down payment is increased. Therefore, sometimes 25,000 didn't cut it, so now it's 35. This is repayable after 15 years. Yeah, so essentially you want to be in an RSP situation that you're contributing, whether it's through your employer, personally, a couple $100 a month, whatever it is, but it does have to be paid back over 15 years. So yeah, that's a good one too, and that can be used for closing costs as well. So not just down payments. You might have 25,000 for down payment on a $500,000 purchase, and then need that additional 10 for closing costs, for like I said, deeds transfer, all those fun things. 750, just a small rebate, 750 first time home buyer rebate from the federal government. So when you do your tax returns in, let's say 2000, and you're doing it in, let's say February, March of 2024 for the 2023 year. One of those questions on there is, are you first time home buyer? Were you a first time home buyer 2023? Click yes, and then you're gonna have a rebate from the federal government as well. And then the down payment assistance program, I think I have a page on that. So this is another good one that when this first came out, it had a little bit of traction, then it died off because they didn't increase the home values of what you could purchase to. So it's like 300,000 in Halifax, but what do you get in Halifax for 300,000? So the program almost just kind of died a little bit. And you can't do it on mobiles, right? So really, you're not getting anything semis or anything like that for this. Now, this one is a bit of an eye chart. Now, you're going to get this presentation sent to you, but the big takeaways from this is this program has become more relevant again. I forget the total household income before used to be like 75,000. Now they moved it up to 145,000, which is great. They also bumped up the purchase amount in HRM to 500,000. Even 500,000 is tough in HRM, but they did bump it up, and maybe you'll see another bump up. But I mean, you can still get a semi and some homes here for 500,000, and also East Hants as well. 300,000 in northern and eastern regions. So that's your Cumberland, Colchester, Pictou, Antigonish, etc., Cape Breton, and also including Yarmouth. And then 375 in the Nablus valleys, heading down to Wolfville and further down there, and also the South Shore. So it did these were pretty big increases from where it was before, and now we're starting to see that program be a little bit more utilized, I guess, than what it was before. So I mean, we see this a bit because you have so many clients that, especially in today's market where there's not a lot of disposable income, people are making their payments, but not everybody just has a family gift that they can get for the down payment of $30,000 for a family member. Or not everybody has just 30 grand sitting in TFSA or RSP or cash in account, right? But they kind of tick all the other boxes. I mean, they've been at their employer for a couple of years, the debt servicing's in line, credit scores over 700, whatever it might be. So they're kind of yes, 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 and then down payment, no. So this is a great program for that. But yeah, so I do like this program.
What's it giving them?
What's that?
What's it giving? A low rate loan or something?
So it's actually, oh, sorry, it's a 10-year interest-free loan. As it was 0%. You don't hear 0% interest too much anymore, right? So it is an interest-free loan over 10 years, right? So they're gonna set up a monthly payment. So if it's 25,000, right? That's what we're giving you. Just divide that by 120, because 120 months in 10 years. And then that's gonna be your monthly payment added on. So you gotta kind of factor that into your budget. So, okay, so my principal and interest payment for the next couple of years is gonna be this. Hopefully it's gonna go down when rates go down, but for right now, it's gonna be this. My property taxes are this. Now you gotta add what your that down payment repayment's gonna be per month. Okay. Someone also asked about the FHSA versus the TFSA. So essentially, it's the first time home buyer savings account that the government put in 2022. It is a great program. It's kind of similar to the tax-free savings account that kind of you get the best of both worlds between RSP and a tax-free savings account, because when you put the money into a first-time home buyer account, you get that tax deduction at tax time. So if you make 100,000 a year and you put 8 grand into this FHSA, your taxable income is 92,000, right? So that's gonna help you tax time, almost like when you do your RSPs, you usually get about a third of those RSPs back roughly. So you do get, that helps you tax wise, but then you can take it out without any tax implications, right? So if you look at an RSP and you take out an RSP, that's drawn as income and taken out of your taxable margin, right? So if your taxable margin is 42%, then you're gonna lose 42% of that income that you to take out the RSP. With this, the FHSA, you do not. So you kind of get the advantage up front and you get the advantage on the backside. Max you can put in is 40,000 and max is $8,000 per year. And you can carry it forward if you don't do the max. So if you can only put in 6 this year, but you have the ability to put in 10 next year, you can do that. So you can keep carrying that forward. You'll see that on your, if you guys do CRA online, you can look at your tax-free savings account limits and what your contributions were. You can look at your RSP limits. You can also look at your FHSA limits as well. So does that make sense, that program? If you know you're going to be buying in the next 3 to 4 years, and don't have the money yet, and don't want to do the down payment assistance program, I think it's a great way to save money if you have the ability to do that. And you can contribute like $100 a month or $200 a month and just get it like a normal investment opportunity that people I find, if they can do $100 a pay or something like that, it adds up pretty quick, right? Or $200 a pay, maybe. It's the easiest way to do it. There's another question, Purchase Plus Improvements. This is a program through CMHC, Sagen, and Canada Guarantee, so the 3 default insurance companies. So it's maximum 20% of the purchase price and can exceed 40,000. So this, it's more on the cosmetic side versus the reno side. So at this point, we're not, for Purchase Plus Improvements, we're not demoing walls, we're not adding new bathrooms, adding new bedrooms, things like that. We're more so ripping up carpet, putting laminate or hardwood down, we're updating the kitchen, we're updating bathrooms, paint, new oil tank, update the back deck, front deck, whatever it might be, new roof, things like that. So more cosmetic and some little structural, but if you get into large structural pieces that people just want to kind of, we're seeing that a lot more now because there's just not a lot of inventory out there and they want to take their own home right now and blow it up and make it, whether it's another level on the top floor, whether it's blowing it out, if they have enough room sideways, whatever it might be. We're seeing a lot more of those larger renovations, which doesn't fall under the improvements. If your clients are looking to buy a home and put significant renos into it, so if they're buying a $300,000 home and want to put 200 into it and do a substantial renovation, we can still do that. It's just a construction draw and doesn't fall under Purchase Plus Improvements. So the Purchase Plus Improvements is what we see the most of. It's one draw at the end. All your client has to do is just give us invoices that the work has been done. Okay, so the biggest question I see about this is, so if they give me quotes of $40,000 and it's all outlined, kitchen, bathroom, paint, whatever, windows, whatever it might be. Some of them say, okay, so do I just kind of have $40,000 to spend and do whatever I want with? Let's say I don't do the windows, can I get new appliances? Or let's say I don't do the windows, can I get this? So the answer is no. They're going to follow up and make sure they want to see the invoice matches the quote. So the same work is done because they're approving it based on that work being done. So if you're saying you're doing the paint, do the paint. If you're doing the floors, do the floors, because that's how the file's approved. Right. And we don't want to get you in a situation where that now they don't release all that money of the work that wasn't done, but you got to pay for the work that you did do. Right. So we don't want to get in that situation. Now that's through CMHC. So if you're putting less than 20% down, we can do this as well. If let's say your client decides to put 20% down, avoid CMHC, we still do the Purchase Plus Improvements. It's what we do is a max of 10% of the property's improved value. So for easy math, we look at 450,000 is the purchase price. And let's say the clients want 50,000 in renos. Now that total improved value is 500,000. We can do the 10% of 500,000, which is $50,000. Okay. So bottom line, just to not make it does get a little convoluted, lots of different options here, but yes, we can do purchase plus improvements. Majority of them are 40,000 or below. And just bottom line, we need to get the quotes up front. That's the biggest challenge I find when working with the realtor on this, because we have a tight financing deadline of a week. So now I have the client pre-approved, ready to go, but there's no point in me sending it to credit unless we get those quotes, because the client doesn't want the house unless the quotes are done. There's no point in me sending it to CMHC to say, okay, yes, we approve it as is. It just has to go back to credit anyway. Once you guys send me those quotes, I need to have that. So that's the challenge I find, is getting those quotes right away. Yeah. So we had rental questions here. So clients buying, whether it's a second home or a rental property. So we do these all the time. Big misconception here is does it have to be 20% down. So a client might want to buy a second home for family or a cottage. You can do that as little as 5% down. Okay. Cottages do not need to be 20% down. Investment property is what we call 80% loan to value. So 80% loan to value means we'll lend 80, you put in 20. Okay, so that is for a true investment property. The max we can do is 4 units in dwelling. So if you have an 8-plex, I'm going to submit that off to commercial. We have great commercial lenders that I deal with very closely that can handle anything that's over a 4 unit. And we just changed our policy now, where I think we're one of the only lenders, Danny, that can do this in the market, but we use 80% of market rent. So that really helps clients' debt servicing. It used to be 50%. So if a clients were going to do a rental property for $500,000 purchase, we order an appraisal, then we also see what it's going to rent for. So let's say it rents for $3,000 a month. Previously, I could only use 1,500 of that 3,000, which is 50% towards my debt servicing. Now we can use 80% of that, which is 2,400. So that's $900 more per month I can use for my debt service. So it's an amazing program that we just upped our rents. We also do just started to, if you have clients looking to buy Airbnb properties, we can do Airbnb purchases as well. When we get an appraisal, what we ask the appraiser to do is say, what's those short-term rents going to be, right? Because normally they put a long-term rental amount on the market rent, right? So we're buying a home for 400,000 and it's 2,500 a month. But now we're getting them to put what a short-term rent's going to be. So it's going to be 800 a week, 1,200 a week. We can use 80% of that income, which is pretty cool. So if you have any clients, I know Airbnb is a big thing. Now I know the rules just changed with an HRM. It has to be your owner occupied property, but outside of HRM, if you have any clients that are buying Airbnbs, we have a really amazing program for this. The biggest thing I do for my clients, and a lot of lenders can't do it this way that we do, it's called a rental offset program. And I'll try to be as simple as I can with that we have so many clients that, let's say first time home buyer 3 years ago, I do their purchase for them. They did 5% down 3 years ago. Now they own their home. Okay. Now they want to move into another owner occupied property, but they want to rent out their existing, right? So they don't need to sell their existing, keep that. What we do is we'll get a market rent on their current home, the one they're living in, right? So let's say it comes back at $3,000. Okay. That's our formula. Super simple. It says 15% vacancy rate, which I always push back on, because what's a vacancy rate in Halifax? 0.005%. There's no vacancy rate, but we can have to use 15. So minus your 450, minus your mortgage, hypothetically 2,000, minus your taxes, minus your heat, that's a plus 150. So really, by owning that current home, that adds more income to a file, which strengthens it, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to qualify the clients with their assets or with their income, and I'm going to add this $150 on. So if they make 100,000 a year, we break that into 80 something hundred a month. I'm going to add that 150 on there. So that property is really helping me. So now they have clients in the last 3 years that bought 2 properties at 5% down. Now they have rental property if they bought a 5% down 3 years ago, and now an owner occupied property at 5% down. So now they're kind of in the rental game with 2 5% down purchases, and an amazing program that we can do with the rental offsets to help me get their debt servicing in mind, right? Which a lot of lenders can't do that calculation right there. So I'll have a lot of, whether it's clients that have gone to a broker, other lenders saying, I can't get approved for this. I heard you guys do this. And Debt servicing with CMHC has to be 44% or below, and the other lender's getting 48%, and I'm getting 42%, and I can do it based on our policies. So that's a really cool one that I do like, and it's a misconception out there that clients can't have two properties at 5% down. That's incorrect, you can. Any questions on that? Good, like we're home stretching now. Fall promotion, so we just came out with this, like I said, I think it started with, 90-95% of the time, we're in market with something. Whether it's a switch, an external refinance, purchases, whatever it might be. We have $1,100 to the client, get the mortgage amount between 100 and 499. Just all tiers, right? 500, 749, 2100. It goes up to 4,000 when you have a million above. I don't do a lot of the million and above mortgages, but they do, then they get 4,000. So these have to be keyed anywhere, well, September 5th, so now to October 31st. I haven't heard if there's anything coming November for a promo, but as long as these applications are keyed from now to October 31st, and can be pre-approval as well, and then fund within 130 days, because remember I said before, our rate holds are good for 130 days, as long as it funds 130 days after that. So what's that, like 130 days or 4 months, so you're November, December, somewhere early March, end of February. 130 days past October 31st. And these were kind of the questions that you guys had asked. And we kind of went through each one of them, but what are the benefits of the military? So hopefully that was answered. Where do you see the future of financing next 2 years? Hopefully that was answered as well. You mean, I think we've seen the bubble, it's going to start coming down now. So how's the Bank of Canada positively impacting the housing market? You mean, you gotta look at it as a more macro conversation. Like overall, it has been slowing inflation. So what they're doing is working. Like I said, it was close to 10% in 2022. Now we're down around 4%, trying to get to 2.5. It is hurting the purchasing power for sure, what they're doing with rates, because I have to qualify clients on either the Bank of Canada rate, the higher the Bank of Canada rate, which is only 5.25, or the client rate +2. So if the client's getting 6.4, I got to qualify them off 8.4% versus it used to be 5.25. So that goes back to the original point where if I approve them today at 400, they might get 500 2 years ago. So big difference. So what I thought that might happen when they kept increasing rates, maybe people can't afford these, and it should start to drive house prices down. But have you guys seen that? Like house prices coming down at all? They've stayed fairly, maybe not as many competing offers, but it stayed fairly. Yeah.
New virus said it feels like.
I know. So how to best prepare my clients to get pre-approved, went through that, just get them in front of me, get all the mitigation done now. Step-by-step of a pre-approval to a closed purchase, we went through that. Bridge financing, we went through that. Affordability and eligibility for first-time home buyer, we went through that. So the limits for new home buyers and grants available. So I kind of tie that in under what's available for first-time home buyers. Overview, first-time home buyers did that. Financing for buyers purchasing homes, so repairs or updating, so purchase plus, we did that. Fixed term or flexible, so I'm kind of in the 3-year fixed, 5-year variable camp, either one. But I'll talk to your clients about this. How long does it take to get pre-approved? We went through that. It can either be a day or it can be a week. It depends how much mitigation we have to do and how if there's a lot of hair on the deal. Like, oh, if it's a hairy deal, it might take a little bit longer. It might take a few reroutes back to credit. But at least with a pre-approval, for the most part, there's no timing on it. Sometimes they want to get an offer right away and I'll go as fast as I can. But sometimes just the client wants to put an offer in the next couple of weeks. So let's get all that work done upfront. Any common issues that arise for people, the properties they are buying. So I'll say this is the main issue I see. When 20% down, we are getting an appraisal done, as I mentioned before. So what they will notice, now appraisers are not inspectors, very different, okay? But they will note whether there's water leaking or water stains in the drywall, things like that, foundation cracks, poor condition of the home. So even though they're not inspectors, they will highlight that as risks on the appraisal that I have to address. And sometimes credit or CMHC will even ask for an inspection report, even though it's technically not ours to give. The clients are paying for these, right? But they won't finance it unless they see more detail, because the appraiser's not putting any detail in. They'll just say, noticed water crack, water mark, or notice small crack on foundation. So if the inspector does more of a deep dive on that and says, yes, this needs to be repaired, because as you guys know, with inspection reports, like It's like kind of like needs to be repaired, doesn't need to right now, things like that. But if there's like needs to be repaired, then we have to add, doesn't mean we're not gonna finance it, but we might have to add it to a purchase plus improvement. So get a quote from a contracting company or foundation company to fix that foundation repair, right? Any special programs for minis and modulars? Went through that. So modulars I did not bring up, but we work with a few builders on the modular side. And we do modular homes as well. Majority of the times clients will own the land. So we do land financing. Then we work closely with a company called Citadel Homes, for example, but there's Patterson, there's Havel, there's so many of them out there. That we can kind of guide your clients to, or if you have these relationships, then we can put the modular on these pieces of land. Maybe the last one is, how's flipping worth it in this market condition? So I don't do flips myself. The bank doesn't love doing short-term financing for flips. I only essentially do mortgages that are on the books for 6 months or longer. Personally, I think yes, I still think it's a good market. I've had a couple of clients that have recently done it. You should have experience in doing this. So have your tradespeople lined up. That's the hardest part I find is getting tradespeople in HRM or around. So if you've done a few of these, you have your trades guys or girls lined up and you have the experience, then I still think there's good money to be made in these. Do you guys see many kind of properties that could use a little bit TLC, for lack of better words, that people can flip? Is there a lot of those out there that you guys are seeing? Yeah. Yeah, so there are some good buys out there still that, I mean, a lot of people have that bug kind of from HGTV and seeing all the money that they're making, but what style of savings account? So we went through that, the FHSA versus TFSA. This question said, what do you know about Strive? I said, I've never heard of it. I don't know. You guys ever heard of Strive?
Yeah,
I was Googling it and I was,
it's a boutique lender in Toronto,
oh, is it?
and they had a good reputation, but they're not good at communication.
Okay, and that's it. You get what you pay for in every business, you know, I mean, the rate conversation comes up and I might get like a client conversation that True North is 5 points or 10 points below me. It's an online brokerage. And they'll deal with them for 2 or 3 days and then they just quit and say, I can't deal with this anymore. Okay, so let's go back to what you had. In any business, you get what you pay for. If they're offering 5 to 10 points lower, it's an online brokerage. It's not going to be, chances are you might not get your approval letter on time. Your client's going to be very frustrated. It's not going to be a great overall experience for them. But yeah, we do have those lenders out there that some people have access to that, or they might not even go through a broker to get them, might just literally, like I said, True North is one of them. Another bit of a pain one is PC Financial. They try to go through those, a few challenges there. So never say anything bad about lenders, but it's just the online ones, it is a little bit more challenging. But there, now I know about Strive. I didn't know that.
They were really hyped like 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Speaking of the person who recommended them, and he said,
Oh wow.
"This feels good."
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's it for me. About 3 minutes over what I said I'd do, but a lot of information there.
When you were talking about fixed, there's a little bit more interest back on variable rate mortgages.
Mhm.
So variable rate mortgages, some will have a trigger point.
Yep.
And once they hit that trigger point, the payments will adjust.
Mhm.
If the rates start to drop, does their payment drop?
It depends on what lender you're with. For us, I can speak for us and I speak for RBC. I can't speak to that anymore, but I don't know how they did it. But for us, our payments don't change. So if you are if you're in a variable and your payment when you first start, it's based on 3% and your payment's $1,800 a month. It'll say in your disclosure documents that you sign, your trigger rate's going to be 5.5%, right? So your payments are going to stay the same, 1,800 until you hit 5.5%. Once that, because what a trigger rate is, I'll back it up. All the trigger rate is once you are only paying interest, right? Now you're not touching the principal at all. Right, so that was a big challenge where now it had to go in. So once you hit that trigger rate, now you had to recalculate your payment go up. Because all the bank wants you to do is get back to your original contract and amortization. So if you started at 25 years, they want to keep you at 25 years. They don't want you to be paying just interest only and be on the never plan. Right? So that's a big challenge that we had with the trigger rate. Now, if rates come down, the good thing is, so let's say your interest rate payment is based on 6.5%, or let's say, yeah, 6.5%, and rates come down to 4%. Maybe the branch can do it, Danny. I don't know, decrease your payments, but if they stay the same, that just means that much more money is going to go on your principal. So really, your amortization is at 25 years. You might look on your online banking, and it might say 20 years, right? Instead of 25, because all that additional payments based on the 6.5 to 4% is going to went to principal. So we've had a lot of issues. I had a lot of clients calling me about that trigger rate.
So can they reduce it?
That question I'll have to get back to you. I don't know. And I don't know if you'd know that, Danny, but that's a follow-up. So if you
Yeah.
understand that there's bringing, like,
Yeah,
if
no,
variable
okay.
rates go down, does the payment stay at the 1,800 or will it come down? And it doesn't, when the rates go up, it doesn't change. So I'm thinking when it goes down, it doesn't change. It's just more will go on to your principal.
I would say just based on my experience with Lacey, for example. You make changes to your payment once
Hmm.
in a cycle, right? So where we struggled a little bit is as rates went up, we could actually increase payments for X amount of percent, but it may not have covered you, right? So I'm only gonna speak to that. The other side is it's based on your contract, right? It's based on your contract and being through the terms and conditions.
Yeah, I'll follow up on that with the branch and see if you can decrease payments. I'm not 100% sure on that. Any other questions? Yeah,
As far as the appraisals for vacant land, I'm not
Yeah.
sure if you will speak to that, like, what are they looking for other than acreage?
so you mean the big thing, like us from the lender, we're looking at marketability. So I mean, is it within HRM or is it a rural lot? Is it on the water? Is it not waterfront? Things like that. So we look at marketability of land. The appraiser, it's still based on comps, right? So the appraiser is that's how they always develop their appraisals. So ideally, they want comps that are within 5 kilometers of that. Sometimes they might have to reach out further, like for pieces of land, you might have something that's 30 minutes away, right? 30 kilometers away, and then they'll have to adjust that value. But they're always gonna put in, and that'll be a risk on the appraisal, that all comparables were not within 5 kilometers of the subject. So we just have to address that. So if they're doing a piece of land in Chester, they might not find a piece of land in Chester comparable to that. They might have to go to Bridgewater or Lunenburg or back to Hubbard's or something like that. But they'll adjust for that and they'll make notes of that in there. But the biggest thing they're gonna drive off is comparables of what's sold.
For people relocating from out of province.
Yeah.
If they don't have a employment set up, how difficult is it for them to get out of mortgage?
So here's the way I do it. If they don't have employment set up, then it's nearly impossible because I need income to use. So if clients can stay on with their position and say they can do it remotely.
Okay.
So if they can do it remotely for a few weeks or a month or 2 months until they find a new job here. We kind of get around it that way. So if the employer will do a letter up saying that remote, because with COVID, you mean so many people now can work remotely, including myself, right? Like I can pick up and go to. But you mean, that's just the way it is. A lot of people now can work remotely, and you see a lot of people from Toronto maybe coming east because it just makes sense to them financially do it and they can do their job remotely. So that's a big one. One client I had the other day said, okay, well, I want to leave my job and I'm going to look for work. And here's kind of the income I've made in the last 10 years. You can see it's been pretty steady. Can you use that? To your point, like, no, I can't. So I said, why don't you do this? Stay at your current job. You have family there. We'll say you live with family and I have to put in $500 a month for shelter costs, but you continue to have your job in Toronto until you find something here. So then I can use that income. So if they're making 100 grand in Toronto, I can use that income. I have to factor in a $500 shelter payment. But I'm literally working on a file like that right now.
And if they are relocating with an employment letter,
problem,
is that
thanks.
an option?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of times they're being transferred, especially D&D. I do a lot, but transfers, things like that. Yeah. An employment letter. Absolutely. 100%. Any other questions? Yeah.
If clients have like the collection
Yeah.
or like some kind of that they didn't pay, so that affect the mortgage?
It does. Collections, so usually hammers the credit pretty hard. We're gonna want to know why something went collections. Majority of collections I see is always Bell or things like that. Phone related. Someone maybe switching from Eastlink to Bell or vice versa, and they said they returned their equipment back. They didn't have record of returning the equipment back. There's a $300 collection charge on there. Clients didn't even know about it. We see that all the time. We can easily get around that. If it's something for BMO, it gets a little bit more challenging. We're gonna want to see that's paid back. A lot of times we're gonna push the client to pay whatever collections are. A lot of times collections are paid, it'll show up in the credit bureau. That's not a balance anymore. They took care of it. The collections company called them and they'll say, okay, I didn't even know I had this, but okay, who do I owe? What do I owe? I owe $300 to Bell. Okay, boom, done. right? So they'll take care of that. So as long as it says paid, it goes back even to collections, it could be consumer proposals or bankruptcies, as long as I can explain them, right? It could be someone who had a recent separation, could be health issues, whatever it might be, because we can see 7 years of the credit report, right? So if they had great credit for 5 years and 1 year was really spotty and then good again, we say, okay, now why was this? They could say, well, actually, I had a heart attack and I was off work and things like that, or I went through separation, whatever it might be, as long as the credit bureau tells a story, right? And as long as I can, like, we have credit options, they're humans, right? Like, they're sitting there and they're like, okay, I get that. They've had great credit, little spottiness here, kind of a one-off. But if it's been 7 years of straight misses, collections, consumer proposal, it's pretty tough for me, but as long as we can tell the story to kind of take that question a little bit further, because I usually get that question a lot with consumer proposals, bankruptcies. Yeah.
How long after a consumer proposal or bankruptcy does a client wait?
Yeah.
Get financing?
Usually 2 years, because the big thing is we have to explain why the bankruptcy happened. Right? It was, like I said, it could be the reasons before. It could be someone wanted to kind of branch out, started their own business that just didn't work out, that they had to declare bankruptcy. So as long as we explain why it happened, and the biggest thing is they've reestablished trades. Because all we want to see, the credit department or CMHC, is that, okay, here's what happened before, here's why it happened, but now they have 2 credit cards, a line of credit, and a car payment for the last 2 years, and they haven't missed. So now they have that's called reestablished credit. Yeah, so usually 2 years. If we have, they can sometimes get a cosigner. So a big thing we can do is get a cosigner on board, right? So let's say parents go on, or a friend, or whoever it might be, strong cosigner, because we won't use any of the income from the bankrupt clients. If the cosigner can kind of take care of their own liabilities plus these new clients' liabilities, we can do it that way. And then after the clients have 2 years reestablished, then we can take the cosigner off. So if the cosigner goes on for 5 years, doesn't mean they need to stay on for 5 years. We can release them after 2 years, as long as we can approve the clients on their own. Right? So they don't have to wait 2 years if they have a cosigner, I guess, would be mine. Yeah. Strong cosigner.
How long?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So how much minimum credit score they need? Or
Yeah.
when they come?
600.
600?
At a minimum, but even 600 is pretty low. You're gonna have a lot of like what we call majors and minors and things in collections. A lot of explanation that we have to do. If it's under 680, normally that's kind of the rule of thumb, that there's gonna be some things that we need to explain to credit. If it's over 680, it's usually pretty smooth. CMHC, or even I think parks have even said maybe 650, or trailer parks, mobile home parks. I don't know what they have. I think they increased their limit, but CMHC is a minimum of 600. We're a minimum of 600. There's always exceptions to the policy on that, but but not with CMHC. Like for us, if you're putting 20% down, your credit score's 598, you're that close. There's still gonna be some mitigation that we have to do, because there's some serious credit issues that have happened to bring you down to that score.
Should be advised, like if somebody is going for the mortgage, before that, check the credit score, or that sometimes they have their own bank, they say we have good scores, so we can just go and do. Then they do the thing, like they go to the bank, then bank say that, okay, your credit score is less, they did the hard check, then the credit score become more or less.
Yeah, so it depends. Like this, I can speak to us. I can, I think Scotia does it as well, that you can check your own credit score online. It's a soft hit, doesn't affect your credit. I don't know where you guys currently bank, but you should. I think a lot of them are starting to do that now. You can actually, I think they all do now. Yeah. Love to say we're the only ones that do it, but no.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you can check your own. So even if it is at 601, it's not a hard credit hit, so you don't have to worry about that. I'll say this, credit checks, you might lose a couple of points. People are so worried about credit checks. That's not the biggest issue. Obviously misses and things like that are, but it's high utilization. I'll say that to you guys. So if you guys personally, or clients or whatever, if your balances are over 50% all the time, that's gonna hurt your credit a little bit. So if you look at your line of credit limit is 10,000 and you're always 9,800 on it, that's a 98% credit utilization. That really hurts your credit. High utilization is a big one. Yeah. No problem. Any others? No. Don't make me eat 24 donuts back there. Next up.
But you will if you have to.
Yes. Oh, I will. No problem.
Thank you very much.
No problem. That was good. No problem.
Very much.
Happy to do it. But you have my contact information, give you my card. So if you have any questions, even outside, you want to call me. got any clients, love to help, please let me know.
Right, thank
We'll go from there, no problem.
What would you say to people, because obviously we get this a lot, people say, oh, I'm gonna wait for the rates to go down, I'm gonna wait for the rates to go down. How do you get around this? What do you say?
How long have you learned about that?
There's so many people waiting on the sidelines. I do hear that a lot as well. I would say, biggest thing is get your approval, get your pre-approval done, because then I can still show you the max of what, don't do short term, get your pre-approval done. If you look at what they're paying rent right now, if you're paying 3,000 rent, I get the mortgage payment of 2,200. Now they're gonna be homeowners, they're gonna realize that equity over the next couple of years, right? Hopefully the house is gonna grow, it's gonna be a better financial decision for them to do that. But I would say it's probably might even be less inventory when rates start to come down. Everybody's gonna be like,
Exactly.
right? So I know there's not a lot of inventory out there right now, but I don't know, if you just think about it. Now you have a bunch more buyers out there because rates have gone from 6.4 to 4%. Very welcome to 4%. You mean now you're gonna have 3 times as many people looking for the same amount of housing, maybe less.
Yeah.
Right?
Those prices will go up because of that as well.
Exactly.
Thank
So
you very much.
no problem. Thanks for coming. So I would say still get the pre-approval done now. If the house they want is kind of worse than their pre-approval, do it now, just do a short term. So you kind of take it on the chin for 2 years. Right? And then when rates come down, they're gonna be pretty happy because their payments based on 6.4, now it's gonna go to 4%. Right? So their payment might come down $1,000 like I showed you in that example, or $800, whatever it may be. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for coming in.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Thanks for coming. I'm not touching anything.
But still recording.